13 months and 10 days, that's how long Vicksburg native Doug Stafinski spent as a military policeman in Vietnam during the very height of the war. Well, because of a mix-up, his parents were sent to the wrong airport when he was discharged in 1970, and his return to the U.S. really only went downhill from there. Well, earlier this month, I accompanied Doug and many other local veterans who are finally getting the thanks they deserve, thanks to a very dedicated group of volunteers called Talons Out Honor Flight.
Thank you. Great day. Beautiful day. Thank you.
Doug Stafinski returned from Vietnam to an empty house. There was no party, no home-cooked meal, just nothing. As time went on, Doug hardly talked about his time in the war. He figured no one really wanted to know. All that changed 40 years after the fact. Well, 40 years and one very special day.
Great big smiles. We're happy to be here too. You look awesome.
They arrived at the airport before dawn. Doug and his son Eric joining dozens of other veterans of Vietnam, Korea, World War II for a Talons Out Honor Flight.
I want to say thank you very much for your service.
There was a big send-off,
22H requirement.
followed by a chartered plane direct to D.C.
Good morning and welcome to Washington, D.C.
A welcome reception, and a police escort to the war memorials.
Should be good, yeah.
Is this impressive?
All the symbols of a grateful nation.
It was an experience that I'll never forget, and this is a wonderful thing that they're doing for us. I mean, this is the most thanks I've ever received. Thank you.
When Doug finally arrived at the Vietnam Wall, with the names of 58,000 fallen comrades engraved, the memories he'd been suppressing came clamoring back.
A lot of guys deserve a lot more respect than I got. They saw it all. A lot of them didn't come back.
I've learned more about my father's Vietnam era in the last 2 weeks than I've known in the last 41 years. It was a bad war, and you know, the homecoming that they received just wasn't what it should have been.
And unfortunately, there are many other Vietnam-era veterans like Doug Stafinski who received equally unheroic welcomes home. There was none of the fanfare, none of the honors bestowed on World War II's greatest generation. So now this honor flight to this memorial is making amends for that.
That was in the midst of flower power and all that sort of stuff in the 60s, you know. It was really shocking.
Calling us all kinds of names and spitting on us. And us wearing the uniform back then was like a disgrace. It was just coming back to a completely different world.
But by now the world has changed again, and those drafted into the Vietnam War finally find themselves on the receiving end of praise, not protest. And like all good stories, their special day came complete with a surprise ending.
Welcome home.
There were thousands of well-wishers at Wings Event Center, which brings us back to where we started. Doug Stafinski's long overdue welcome home.
Thank you.
And Talons Out will continue to thank Doug and all the veterans of the Vietnam War, a conflict we lost, where thousands of lives were lost, so their bravery in the face of grave danger is no longer lost on us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really was an amazing trip today. Incidentally, is the 44th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War. Talons Out Honor Flight is accepting applications for future trips, which are always free for veterans. But every honor flight costs more than $130,000, and they're funded entirely through donations. For more information on donating, on volunteering, or sending your veteran on this once-in-a-lifetime trip, visit our website. That's WWMT.com.